Okay, let's see. We should be live. All right, great. We are. Welcome to Tamarah's Closet today. And I am extremely grateful and excited today, even more than usual, because I love all my guests that I've had. I've been really blessed to have a lot of talented guests. And this special guest is certainly no different. But what I have to say is that I've really had so much fun watching him on social media and just watching how he communicates with people. And I think because I've been in a networking company before and in that scene kind of learning about marketing online and such, it's been extra fun for me to watch this musician doing such a great job marketing on his own. And he does it in such a personable sort of way. So when I first actually saw his the first picture of him on Twitter, I believe is where I first saw him. It was actually his smile that caught my eye and captivated me, because first of all, I was jealous that his smile might be nicer than mine. And I was like, wait a minute, this guy's got a great smile. So I started researching him, or I say stalking him on social media, but it didn't take me long to realize that his smile was just so real and genuine. And his personality matches his smile, and so does his ability to connect with people. And that's when I knew I really wanted him on my show. So I have to say that I'm loving everything that I'm learning about him. Because he's not just a musician. He's a blogger. He loves connecting with people. But he's also a producer, which I learned recently, and I had seen this beautiful video that he actually directed and shot and edited for another singer that we're going to talk about, this video that he did. So we'll talk about that later. But he is an incredible networker, which is just really hard to find, I think, because usually someone's either they're great, they have this talent, but they're not great at marketing themselves, and this man's got it all. So not only is he truly a personable soul, when I spoke with him a couple days ago on Skype, my usual quick 5 to 10 minute talk to one of my guests turned into a 40-minute talk, because he's got such a great sense of humor and we just connected really well. And so I just knew today was going to be really, really wonderful. So I really don't want to delay any longer. I am excited to welcome to my show a singer, songwriter, and producer, Romeo Crow. So say hello, Romeo, so I know that you're with us.
Hey, I'm with you. What an amazing introduction. Thank you so much, Tamarah. That's beautiful. I was actually looking around because I thought you were talking about someone else. And then I realised it was just me here. When you said my name, I was like, wow, she really does mean me. And I thought, it's 12 p.m. there, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely too early for drinking. So you're sober when you said that. That's impressive.
Yeah, I'm sober.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to bring you, I knew it was dinner time for you. I thought I'd bring in dinner for you, but then I realized we're not in the same room, so I can't do that.
I would have liked it, but being typically British, I'm having a nice cup of tea because I'm so rock and roll.
Okay, well, great. Well, Romeo, I'm gonna start with the questions because there's so much I want to ask you today. So I want to have plenty of time for you to talk. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you, because you have such a great personality, is I just know I've always thought it's got to be fun being a rock star, and I think that I know that I can't be the only person that has fantasized about that. The world's lucky that I didn't pursue that. But anyway, I've got to know, what would you say would be the best part? What's the best part about being Romeo Crow? What's the most fun part about being you? Because you seem like such a fun person.
Wow, what a question. Well, I guess firstly, I've certainly dreamed about being a rock star, and I have no idea what it's like. So if I ever get there, I'll let you know. So I couldn't talk about that. But certainly, what's the most fun part about me? Well, I mean, it's a bit of a cliche one, but it's a really easy one for me to answer. The most fun part, the best part about being me is my wife and daughter. End
Oh.
of. I mean, and they're not here, so I'm not even earning brownie points. Um, you know, they probably watch it back afterwards, but without doubt, that's yeah, by far the best part. Which isn't a very rock and roll answer. I've just realised what the question was, and I know it's not a very rock and roll answer. But if it comes to, I guess, to focus on it from a musical or creative standpoint, I guess the thing that I like most, that I'm really happy that I've been able to get to the position of being able to do, is be able to do things as I want, when I want, myself. So you kind of touched in the introduction, the amazing introduction, on a few of the other things I've done outside of music, or I do outside of music. And I'm sure we'll talk about these maybe in a little bit more detail later, but they are just things that I've done so that I could do them for myself, mostly because I didn't have the money to pay someone else to do it. I didn't know someone who could do it. So I've taught myself a bunch of skills, and now they're all kind of coming together in, you know, in a really congruent way, which is something that I'm finding very satisfying and very enjoyable, because now it's kind of like all these diverse pieces of puzzle all of a sudden are kind of coming together, and I'm like, that's what it looks like. Oh, that's what I look like. But you know, that's the kind of thing, I guess, that's cool.
Well, I think both answers are great, because the part about your wife and your daughter is that was a great answer, and if she's not watching, you're going to get brownie points later for sure for that one. I know, because I did see a little picture of your little girl on Instagram, I think, and it was a darling little picture. So I think that would be, yeah, I think that would be the fun part too about being you. But speaking of your daughter and your wife, how are you juggling being a dad, a husband, and a musician, marketing yourself, and even I'm sure you socialize and being a friend? How are you juggling all that with really pursuing your career?
I guess sometimes it gets quite confusing, and I start marketing to my daughter, and you know, and being a dad to random people on the street. I don't know. You get confused sometimes. It's. I mean, firstly, it's fantastic, because I used to work in a 9 to 5, or a bit longer than 9 to 5, but you know, in a normal day job, and I was always very keen that when my wife and I had children, if possible, I wanted to be at home as much as I could, especially during the kind of early years, because my daughter's only 2.5, so you know, it's quite early, but they changed so much at that time. And I remember I had a boss, and he was always like, he'd been in the office at 8 in the morning, he'd get home about 8, 9 in the evening, just in time maybe to kiss his kids goodnight, and then on the weekend all he wanted to do is sleep, and then they wanted him to get up and play, and he missed out on a lot of stuff. And I kind of thought, well, work in that sense, like in an office, you know, there's always work, and work will always be there, and you can always go back to it. But those first few years, particularly with your kids, you know, you never get that time back. So I was always really keen that I would be home, and I kind of worked towards that. But equally, you know, you've got to be careful what you wish for, because I mean, we live in a 1-bed apartment, so we've got the bedroom, we've got the bathroom, the kitchen, and the lounge. And the lounge is where we eat, because the kitchen's quite small and it's just easier to eat in the lounge. It's where we sit and chat. It's where my studio is. It's where all of my instruments are. It's where my wife's desk is. It's where my daughter's toys are. It's where everything happens. And so working from home with the little one, you know, running about, certainly it's varied. You know, I mean, and so how do I kind of cope with it? I mean, it's hard to be on a schedule, so I just have to, like everything, you kind of have a trade-off. So the beautiful and brilliant thing about being able to be home, and when my little girl comes running in, I'm here, and that's fantastic. The flip side to that is it means that I might not be able to get a complete run of at a project that I want to work on or something. So balancing that, my wife is absolutely amazing, because she's been really supportive. She always has been really supportive, but particularly if I, you know, she knows I need to work from home, so she tries to take Mina, my daughter, out for the day or out for certain periods, so that I've got that run of time. But it just means that sometimes or very often I'll work till sort of 2 in the morning,
Wow.
3 in the morning, and then the little one will wake me at kind of 8:30 and tell me in no uncertain terms that it's time to play, and very forcefully. I tell you, she's the negotiator. That one, she runs the house. And so balancing it all, I mean, it's challenging because there's a lot to do. There's a lot of hats. I mean, the thing that I said earlier about the great thing to be me is, one of the things I really appreciate is the fact that I can do everything myself. You flip that on its head, and one of the really challenging things is that you do everything yourself. So, doing the social media, doing the marketing, and that side of things does take a huge chunk of time, which you kind of touched upon. Other musicians often don't have that in their toolkit, or don't have that to what they're doing. And I think part of that is lack of knowledge potentially, but part of that is lack of desire, because they realize quite how much time it's going to take. And something I thought was really interesting, I'm a creative person. I write songs, I write books or stories, and I want to make films. And sometimes I think, hang on a sec, I've not actually done anything creative for weeks or months, because I've been doing other projects, building my website or whatever. And I watched an interview recently with Pharrell Williams, who I think is a really eloquent guy, and I think he makes a lot of sense when he's in interviews. And he was saying something, I'm going to paraphrase because I can't remember exactly, but you need to, if you want something, then you need to be willing to go the extra mile to do it, and do what the other guys who also want it aren't doing. So to my mind, not that I only heard this, I think, like last week or the week before, but it kind of sums up quite nicely my feeling in that, yes, it's tough, and yes, it means you're going to put in a lot of hours, and yes, it's difficult because you can't just schedule stuff so easily. But at the same time, if you're prepared to put in the work, then that is the difference, I think, between those that would like to do something, whatever that is, and those that, actually get it done. And I think it's very simple. Nike put it well, I guess, just do it.
Yeah.
You just got to find the time and do it. I mean, you're a very creative person who does a lot of things, and I've been amazed by how just brilliant you are online, and just constantly putting stuff out, and constantly I know how difficult and how time consuming it is to do stuff. I mean, I'm looking in the background at that artwork that you've made, and I mean, it's just so cool. It's so pro, and I know how much time goes into that, so to me it's you're similar in that, that, okay, other people might have just gone down, well, in England, you go down to the pub, go to the bar in the States, I guess. And while those people are doing that, other people are still working home. In fact, the last thing, and then I'll finish the question, I heard something from Arnold Schwarzenegger, which made me laugh. He was giving some speech to some people, I don't know what it was, I just heard it. And he said, while all your friends are out horsing around, and at parties, you're the one working. And he said, if you don't think there's enough hours in the day, sleep faster.
Yeah, exactly.
But of course, in the Schwarzenegger accent, sleep faster. It's brilliant.
I like him. That's right. Well, what are you? I gotta ask this too, because where did you learn about blogging and the networking? I mean, because that's something that I picked up on right away about you, and it. I mean, I think people are either good at it or they're not, and some people have to hire somebody to do it, even in the beginning, because they're just frankly not very good at it. And I know I had talked to you on Skype. I had mentioned something to you about it, and you were actually telling me about a story where you were at I thought you said it was a marketing seminar, and you were telling this story about getting up on the couch, and because you were trying to get a point across to this guy, and you were yelling out, "Hey, look at me! I'm playing at such and such a place." Because you were trying to get a point across. So was that a marketing seminar that you were talking? I mean, how did you learn all that?
Also, I'll try and answer the two of them sort of in order. How I learned it.
To blog.
How I learned to blog, how I learned anything, very, very simple. We are extremely fortunate, those of us anybody who's connected to the internet via broadband is just extremely fortunate, because there's at least one amazing tool out there. I mean, there's obviously thousands, but Google. That's it. And when I used to work in, as I said earlier, in the office and whatnot, people ask me questions. How do you do this? How do you do that? Blah, blah, blah. Or they'd ask, generally, if somebody asked me a question that they haven't obviously searched for themselves, how do I do this? You know, it might have been in the office, it might have been something in Excel, you know, in a spreadsheet. Or how do I do this? I'm like, Google it. You know, you've got an internet, you've got the connection, you've got the browser. If you can find somebody who can share the knowledge with you, yes, that will be a lot quicker and a lot easier. But first and foremost, you know, if you want to know how to do something, Google it. And so that's the first thing. The second thing on that is, to what I said earlier, do it and know that you're going to do it wrong to start with. Know that you're going to fail. Know that you're going to not get it right. And when you look back at it 6 months down the line, you're just going to be, oh God, what did I do? Why did I do that? How did I, you know? But that is the learning curve, you know. I guess Thomas Edison, I think it was, invented the light bulb. I'm going to show my ignorance here. He tried 10,000 times to invent the light bulb, and he got it wrong, you know, according to people. And they said, how come, you know, how come you persevered? Because you failed 10,000 times. He said, no, I worked out 10,000 ways that it doesn't work. And then you know, and it's like, that's exactly it. You know, you're not going to get it right first time, but you have to be prepared for the long haul and the slog. If you can shortcut that journey by having a mentor or somebody who can show you how to do something, or a particularly helpful video on YouTube or whatever, then brilliant. Take all the shortcuts that you can get to get from A to B faster, but you have to be prepared to do the work. And so how do I know to blog, or how do I know to do anything? You know, and I don't feel necessarily that I do know how to blog or do other things, but it's simple, you know, trial and error. And if I don't know how to do something, I Google it. And, you know, building websites and stuff, I've had problems. I remember one problem particularly, I must have put in 30 to 40 hours on this one problem. And when I found the solution, it was literally one click button. I just hadn't, you know, I wasn't asking the right set questions on, you know, when I was typing in Google, I wasn't putting it quite the right way. So I guess one of the useful things is know how to ask a question. You know, right. Know how to ask. In fact, I go to a martial arts school, and my martial arts teacher is very, very, very wise man. He's very adamant about asking a question correctly, and knowing and learning how to ask a question, because that is a skill in and of itself. If you want someone to share information with you, even if that someone is Google, you've got to be able to formulate the question in a way that you're more likely to get the answer back that's going to help you progress. So so certainly Google, trial and error, be willing to do it. You know, that's how I basically learned everything. And lots of late nights and lots of cups of tea. I'm not a coffee drinker, so lots of cups of tea, and perseverance. And in the second question about the seminar, it was actually a seminar. It was a networking event. It was basically somebody had a very good idea that if they charged people 10 quid to come together into a room and network, then they could make good money and people would pay 10 quid each. And I realised afterwards, well, we could have just done that without paying, because it was just in a bar anyway. So I thought that was very good marketing. I learned a good lesson off that one. And actually, that's another thing. People, you know, keep your mind open to how you can learn from a situation, even if that situation isn't directly or seemingly directly related to what you're doing. I learned more about management when I was in my job. I had a little team. By the time I left, I had a little team under me, or a very big team. And I learned more about managing people, not through any on-the-job experience, not through training, but through martial arts, through the way that my instructor, my Sifu, kind of goes through stuff. And he's very adamant, again, that you know, generally speaking, people don't attack you on the street nowadays. You'd be unfortunate if they did. So what's the point, apart from getting fit and studying martial arts? If you just want to get fit, you may as well go to the gym, or you may as well do something else. And the school I'm at is a traditional Chinese martial arts, so it's kind of old school, excuse the phrase. And he is very keen that you take what you're learning and be able to bring it into your daily life so that you can benefit from it, which at first I was a bit like, well, I'm going to punch someone in the face if I don't like them at work. But actually, you know, it's amazing how much you can use the physical training and the emotional and the psychological effort and translate that into your life. So be will it be open your mind to how you can learn from anybody and everything in every situation and see, okay, that's cool. Oh, if I apply it in that way, maybe it will work, and then trial and error, and then maybe it won't work, and you go down loads of cul-de-sacs, loads of your places, and you're like, nope, this is a dead end. Back the other way. Those last 3 days were completely wasted, but hey, that's cool. So I was at this networking event I happily paid good money for, to sit in a bar and pay for the drinks as well. And they weren't cheap either. And I was sitting with this guy, and I hadn't met him before, and he was a very cool cat. He was really, really cool. Just like he had the hat and the open shirt and the chains, and he was a guitar player, and he was just so laid back. I thought he was sleeping at some point. He was very cool. And he's a jazz player, and he's like, yeah, man, but I just want to play music. I just like playing guitar, and I don't want to have to do this networking stuff. And I post stuff on Facebook, and but I don't really see the point of this. And the conversation progressed, and we talked about networking. We're talking about marketing and promotion. And I said to him, well, the thing is, a lot of what people do, and this is a mistake I and everybody makes at the beginning. A lot of what you do, you're like, okay, cool, I'm a musician, I'm an artist, I'm whatever, and I've got to promote myself, my business on social media, so I'm just going to, what do I do? And you've got no idea what you can do. So, okay, I'm going to post, hey guys, I'm playing a gig on Thursday, come and see me play. And you post that, and then a week later you post another thing, hey guys, I've entered into this competition, and I want you to vote for me, and etc., etc. And I said to him, the problem with this approach is, it's not real life. And although it's online, it's still real people, and you should treat them like real people, because they are real people. They are you and me and everybody else who's online doing whatever they're doing. And I said, if you wouldn't do this kind of thing in real life, and he was kind of looking at me, he's like, well, I don't see the difference. I said, all right. So I stood up on the couch, we were sitting on the couch, and I just screamed at the top of my voice, hey everyone, I'm playing a gig on Friday, who wants to buy a ticket? And of course everyone just looked at me like, who is this idiot, man? Shut up, dude. I think someone threw a drink at me. But it was cool because I used my kung fu to catch it and drink it. So I sat down, and of course he understood straight away. It's, you don't just shout at people in real life randomly. You chat to people, and then you develop a relationship with them, and then maybe they are a bit more interested to find out a bit more about what you're doing, and hopefully at that point you've got a relationship, you're finding out a bit more about them, and it becomes a different kind of relationship to you just broadcasting and shouting out at people. And so that kind of idea is very much key to how I'm trying to think about things, and communications I put out, and certainly underpinning that is what value, as a content creator, or as a blogger, or as a marketeer, or whatever, what value are you bringing to the other person? Or to put it in a different way, a way that I usually prefer doing it, am I allowed to swear? I will beep it. Why should they give a about what you're doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Why should anybody give a about what you're doing? And it's what I used to say to people. My old job, I was working in sales, advertising sales, so we'd sell advertising space in magazines, which is a dying industry within dying industries. It's like trying to sell someone a promise of a dream that may or may not happen. It could easily be money down the drain, and often is. And I would say to people, you can't just call someone up and be, do you want to buy something? Whatever industry you work in, you've got to work out why they care, why they would give a monkeys about what it is that you're trying to sell them or talk to them about. And even if I'm not asking people for money, like I give away my music for free, I'm not asking people to pay for it, but what I am asking is something far, far, far more valuable from them. I'm asking for their time and their attention. And so that, you'll never get that back. People can make money, they can lose money, they can get money again. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's difficult, but your time you never get back. The interest and attention is a precious thing. And so of course I want as many people to hear my music as possible. That would be great, but equally I always try to think, well, why should they care, basically? So I think underpinning everything is that, think of the other person. It's not just, there's 7 and a bit billion of us. It's not just Romeo Crow or Tamarah or whoever.
Yeah.
You've got to think about others.
That's awesome. Well, that was actually an awesome answer too. So you are great at what you do. So I know that you said that you self-taught yourself to play the guitar back in your teens. Where did your where do you think you got this musical talent from? Do you have siblings? Were your parents musicians or?
Um, that's a good question. No, my parents aren't musicians or musically inclined. I actually picked up the guitar because my brother, who's a couple of years older than me, had a guitar. And everything that he did at that stage, everything he did, I was trying to copy. And I think he only lasted about 2 months on it, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I like this. I carry on. But my grandfather was very musically skilled, but unfortunately, I didn't really know him in his prime, as it were. So he died when I was sort of 12. But for my memory of him, he wasn't very well. So I didn't know him as the man that I've been told he was prior to him being ill. But in a kind of nice twist, it was actually him still that got me on the path of music, because when he died, he left an old organ. And the family were like, oh, okay, well, Romeo, you kind of like music stuff, making noise, probably just talking. So they thought, at least this might shut him up for a bit. No one's noticed that. And so I inherited this organ, and it was old and it sucked because I was a young boy and this was the least coolest instrument around. And so I traded it in for an all singing, all dancing keyboard because I didn't know any better. Because the only shop I could take it to, this is before eBay, before Gumtree, before the internet. You didn't have many options if you were selling stuff. So I had to take it into a keyboard shop. And the only things that they sold were keyboards, so I took this all singing, all dancing keyboard, and I was playing with it for a year or a couple of years, maybe. And I wasn't very good at it. I didn't really grasp it, and it also still wasn't very cool. I realised at that stage I just started getting a bit older, and people my age were starting to get into bands rather than just pop music. And I was like, oh man, I don't see any of these bands with keyboards, man. They got guitars and they're rocking out. And around that time, my brother just got this guitar, and I was like, So I sold the keyboard and got my first guitar, and that's what got me into it. So it's kind of nice because it still kind of came from my grandfather, but just in a very roundabout way, much like the way I talk, just a very roundabout way.
And then you just started teaching yourself. I mean, that's what I mean.
Well, I mean, and again, this is something that I think that overarches everything. People say nature or nurture. People have talent or they don't have talent. Or I'm a firm believer that everyone has a level of natural aptitude at things, and some people will be able to. Let's say you start at A, which is having no ability in something at all. You can't do it, whatever it is. Blogging, playing guitar, gardening, cooking. You start at A, and then through the process of doing, you improve. And let's say B is, where everybody wants to get to. So, or A, B, C, D. Okay, let's say D. I'm going to go D. I had to use my fingers there. So you start A and you want to get to D. So you're going to go through B, C. Shit, I've already got it wrong. E. E. So, because I got 5 fingers, I forgot. I thought I had 4 because I don't use them on the guitar. So you're going A, B, C, D, E. You're going from A to E. So you've got to go through B, C, and D. And some people have natural aptitude, so they'll get through B and C really quickly. And they'll arrive at E eventually more quickly than somebody else who doesn't necessarily have the natural aptitude. But if that person with the less natural aptitude puts in the time, they'll still get to E. They'll still get to the end. It just might take them a bit longer. So I don't believe that there's, unless you've got a physical disability or not even a disability, a physical challenge in doing something. I'm 5'7". I'm never going to play basketball. No matter how much I jump, I'm not going to slam dunk. I'm sure there are guys at 5'7" who can, but I'm not going to be one of them. But for the most part, if you want to do something, you just got to put in the time, and you just got to be prepared for the frustration and just the frustration and the errors and etc. And I think that that's what it comes down to. So I taught myself because I just thought this is a cool instrument, and I got a couple of books which actually I looked at just a couple of weeks ago, I re-looked at these books and they're so bad. So I don't even know how I learned anything off of them. But this is, again, pre-internet. You know, you just get yourself some materials. If you know someone, I didn't, but if you know someone, you know, try and sit down with them and just keep going, keep pushing. So yeah, so that's how I taught myself guitar, and that's how I'm teaching myself drums and piano, and how I taught myself everything, really. Although if I can, I'll definitely try and get people to help me.
Your daughter, I know she's really, really young now. You said she was 2, is that right?
2.5 now. Because that half year makes a big difference when they're that young.
Oh, yeah. So does she make, like, sing-alongs, or does she show any interest in music at that young age, or?
Yeah, she is a natural performer. She's really, really, but she's kind of funny because if you ask her to, or if somebody she doesn't know or she hasn't seen for a while or whatever, if there's a stranger in the room or whatever, she'll just be like. But if you let her do her thing, because she's very independent, then she'll start, you know, doing what have you. So she loves playing. She loves pinging on the guitar. She likes playing on the piano. She likes hitting the drums, and she loves singing. Yeah, she's far more talented than I am already. Yeah, no, she's very. I think if she wishes to, I'm not going to push her into it, but if she wishes to, then I think she could be quite the. Like I went to my parents yesterday. It's a long journey, 2 hours there, 2 hours back, and I took Mina so she could see the parents. And for a good hour on one of the segments of the journey, it was on a bus. She was just singing away, a lot of Frozen, and she can't pronounce all the words properly, so she just kind of freestyles it. And sometimes she segues into other songs, or she makes up her own words. But she was more than happy to perform on the bus to people, and she's doing, like, you know, the whole hands, the whole.
Oh my.
She does. And she hasn't seen that. She just kind of. So people found that really amusing. So when she wants to, yeah.
Oh.
So I think she'll be quite musical.
Oh, that's great. That's pretty cool. Now, I know that you also have had some pretty great mentors. You had mentioned musicians, I guess, that have influenced you and that I guess you have built upon. And I was reading in your bio, you wrote, you know, Led Zeppelin was one, and AC/DC, and Rage Against the Machine. You also said you loved funk, which I do too, blues and soul. But what you said was you were really also influenced back to Motown greats and the great American crooners, the Songbook crooners, which I thought that was really cool because, I mean, I didn't even think about you liking, you know, the Bing Crosby and Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra and all that. So that was really cool. And those were singers that my parents grew up with. But what really stood out, you said to me that there was actually one musician in particular, and I'm going to quote you, you said that really wraps it all up in one for you, and you said that was Prince. So I wanted you to kind of talk about that and tell the viewers how he has influenced you, not just in music, but you talked about in other areas as well.
Yeah, I mean, Prince for me is the single kind of greatest artist, in so much as he can do it all and does do it all. So, you know, he danced like, I mean, I think he probably would say himself, when he wanted to learn to dance, he watched James Brown videos and he could do James Brown. When he wanted to play guitar, he was watching Hendrix and he learned to play Hendrix. And he's very good at imitating to the point where he knows how to do it, and then he takes it and makes it his own, which is the mark of generally of great performers, because everybody builds on. I mean, you mentioned you know, the crooners and the sort of great American Songbook and all of those kind of writers, kind of traditionally kind of jazz, and then that kind of segued slightly into guys who started using that but playing blues stuff, which then brings you into the blues, but then into soul music, and then the soul music progressed with sort of funk. And then, I mean, to me, bands like Rage Against the Machine, who people would be like, how's he going to get Rage Against the Machine into this? A lot of the licks, a lot of the guitar stuff, to me, is funk rock. It's funk stuff. that kind of two note. You hear that stuff in James Brown. You hear that stuff. It's very, but of course they just play it with hard, lot harder drumming and vocal. But so there's this thread that runs through, all of this stuff, all of the styles that sort of bring it together. And Prince is somebody who I think is very, very good at understanding that. He can play the R&B, he can play the blues, he can play the rock, he can dance, he can sing. His vocal register is, he's got, when he wants to, he can get deep. When he wants to, he can get ridiculously high. He's got this falsetto, and that's kind of a lot of what we hear. But aside from that, the guy can play, I don't know how many instruments, but certainly the guitar extremely well. The bass, like a proper bass player. I play bass like a guitar player plays bass. It's just a bigger guitar. It's not very good. But he can play bass kind of properly. He can drum. He can probably break dance. I don't even know. But and then you've got the fact that he is very unique in his style and his look. He understands it. He understands marketing and his brand and his image very, very well. But that's all kind of front, facing people. Behind the scenes, and this is for me one of the most impressive things, is his work ethic and his ability in the studio. Very innovative in the 80s with drum machines and with samples and loops. Not that I understand this too much, but a lot of what he did was really quite groundbreaking and has been imitated a lot since, but nonetheless, or built upon since. But he would be in his studio and just, I have this vision of him, he has this public persona, but most of the time he's just there making songs after song after song. And he himself says he's got a vault of, I don't know, 300, 400, 500 songs, which has never been released. And this is coming from a guy who in a year might release 100 songs just out of the blue. And it's like, oh yeah, I've still got hundreds more that you haven't heard. And I knew a guy who was a recording engineer. And he had a friend who was a recording engineer at Paisley Park who would send him a lot of, which is Prince's studio, who would send him a lot of Prince's just demos and jams. And so he's got all these songs in his vault, and then he's got thousands of hours of jams and other ideas. And that just constant improvement and push for me is just amazing. I've seen him play live, I think probably about 7 times or something.
Wow.
One of the tours I saw him on, he came to London a bunch of years ago and he played 21 nights at the same venue. And I went to see him 4 or 5 times, I think, in that tour. And what I'd heard beforehand was he'd said to his band, the backing band, because he changes his band pretty much every time. And he said, okay, we can do this tour. You need to learn a set list of, let's say, 300 songs. And on the night, at any given time, I'll just call off the song and you better be on it and ready to play it. And as a consequence, each one of the gigs that I saw was a completely different gig, a completely different show to the night before. It wasn't, yeah, you had the hits in there, but it wasn't the, the kind of, okay, it's a carbon copy each night, and yes, he's going to perfect it. It was just a masterclass in musicianship, in showmanship, and performance. And as a songwriter, he's written for a lot of other artists that people don't know. I mean, obviously, famous ones like Nothing Compares to You, the Sinead O'Connor track, and Kiss, everyone's like, oh, Tom Jones. Like, no. I mean, people, I guess, do know him for Kiss, but there's loads of songs that he's written that you go, really? Prince like that? Man. So that's why I think as a single artist, I'm really amazed with him. In terms of, is he my favourite from a purely musical point of view, from a purely like his music, then he's definitely up there, but he's probably not my favourite. I'd lean to some other bands then at that stage. But as a single powerhouse, then yes, that's why. Yeah. And I'm not on commission either. But Prince, if you're watching this, give us a bell, yeah. Can't imagine us watching it.
Well, I've read a lot of what you said about him, and he is pretty amazing. And I mean, he certainly deserves his kudos there, because he's brilliant. He really is. He does so much, and so I can see why he would be someone you would mentor after too. Just with, like you said, with his work ethic, that's pretty amazing. So, but there was a particular quote that you said that I really, because I'm so big into inspiration and I have my inspirational blog, You said in there, you said that you were a great believer in intrinsic awesomeness in everyone, and you said that we all can achieve amazing things, but all too often we let life shackle us. And I think this is something that a lot of people who want to achieve their dreams really need to hear. But, so I wanted you to kind of expand on that quote and how it has and is helping you, because you even mentioned that you write about this a lot in your lyrics.
Actually, I didn't realize until relatively recently that I do write about this a lot in my lyrics. And I was looking at a whole bunch of songs together, and I was thinking, they're basically the same message. I didn't intend that to happen, but it's just the same message in different, from a different angle, or often from the same angle. And that's when I really kind of understood. I think sometimes it takes a while before somebody really understands an underlining pattern to what they're doing or what they're saying, or and obviously if you are putting creative works out there, or if you're putting art out there, then there will be an underlying pattern to that art which you probably won't discover until you've put out a certain amount of it. Not necessarily because people are giving you feedback or not, just because then you have a wider view or a bigger picture. So that was really interesting to me, because it kind of really aligned with what I felt, and I was like, oh yeah, actually that makes sense. Like they say to you when you're as an artist, for example, it'd be like, well, what's your unique selling point, or what do you stand for? What's your And I always thought, well, that's a difficult one to answer, and blah, blah. And what I realized now is that quite often, especially at the beginning, you can't answer that, because any answer you give, you're just making it up, because you haven't gone through the process of doing the work enough for what you stand for to actually come out at you. And it's kind of like you use that as a mirror. You use your body of work as a mirror to kind of see, this is what I'm about. And then all of a sudden the penny drops and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that is what I'm about. So that was a really interesting thing for me. And what I really, really believe, to go to the quote, and it's kind of what I touched on earlier, is that I think anybody can do anything that they want, have the ability to do anything they want, say, obvious things aside. But most of the time, people don't pursue that for lack of resources, whether that's perceived anyway, whether that's money, or whether that's time, or whether that's talent or ability. And often it's because they're going to judge their output, and they're going to judge themselves on their response that comes back to them from what they put out there. And that's a really big shame, because you put yourself into your art, sure, but your art isn't you. If somebody doesn't like a song that I wrote, or a lyric that someone's written, it's not a reflection on that person. They don't dislike that person, they just don't particularly like that song or that, and that's cool. And I think for a lot of particularly creative people, making that distinction can be fairly tough at the beginning. Of if somebody criticizes a work that you've put out there, it doesn't necessarily mean they're criticizing you. Sure, they might be criticizing you, or they might want to criticize you, and that's a different ballgame. But it's very difficult and I've noticed in talking to people, other musicians and whatnot, it's very difficult for them to let their stuff go out there and not feel really personally attacked or vindicated or what have you with the response that comes back. So oftentimes there's an underpinning fear. And there was actually, I read the beginning of a book a bunch of years ago. I was just sitting around and I was waiting for someone, I think, so I just read the first few chapters. And I think it was a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And what I thought was really interesting is, and I'm probably going to get this slightly wrong, but is the way that the author highlighted pretty much anything that we do in life that we're worried about. Underpinning it all is just the fear of is a fear of, I'm going to get it wrong. Basically, underpinning it all is the same fear, the fear that you can't cope. That's it, basically. Right. So it's like if you lose a loved one, obviously that's a terrible thing, but underpinning that is actually the fear that you can't cope with losing the loved one. If you're worried about money problems, it's the fear that if you don't have money, you're not going to be able to cope. And I thought this was a really interesting point, because actually it doesn't really matter what people are afraid of, whether it's people rejecting their art, or whether it's their boss at work, or whether it's whatever it is. Underpinning that is a fear that you can't cope. And when you kind of for me at least, when I saw that and I thought, oh yeah, it makes total sense. And all of a sudden you realize, well, of course I can cope. And then that helps alleviate a lot of the fear. So with this kind of intrinsic awesomeness in people, I really believe that everybody has got some amazing talents, but very often they themselves are unaware of the talents because they've never had an opportunity to be in a situation where those talents naturally come out and they go, oh wow. And the worst thing for me is when somebody doesn't know what they want to do. Like you say to someone, oh, what do you want to do in life? What do you and oh, I don't know, you know. And for me, that's the biggest shame around, because the amount of potential, everything that's ever been achieved by humans has been achieved by people who were born butt naked with absolutely nothing, screaming, you know, into the world, taking their first breaths. And then, yeah, some people might have had a family that had a bit more money than others, but more or less, they are no different to anybody else. They had a desire, they followed it through. But what separates the people who achieve and the people who don't is people who achieve often have quite a clearer direction of what they're doing. They know what they're doing, and what they're doing, they love to do. And I think that center point is so important, is being able to do something that you love to do, not because you're doing it because you kind of have to, or you think you should, or it's a sensible option, or life has shackled you to do that kind of 9-to-5 job. You know, we're taught so much at school, certainly in the UK and probably in the US. The school system is all about passing exams. It's all about going to university or college. It's all about getting a job. And this was fine kind of in the industrial age, but we're way past that. But the education system hasn't caught up. So as a culture, we're very conditioned to this idea and this set way of doing things, and you get a job. And actually that is a little, in human history, that's only a little blip on our history that started with the Industrial Revolution, when all of a sudden everyone was cramming into cities and we needed more work for them to do, and we needed the factories, and we needed people to overlook the people in the factories. So then we had managers, and none of these things existed before that. Everyone just did their own kind of cottage industries. They were at home, they'd take their product to market. And I believe that we're kind of, in a weird way, returning to this idea of a cottage industry where people can make a living from home again. They can make a living in a specialist or an artisan way. I'm an artisan or a specialist because I'm doing music, and you're blogging and making, you know, these videos, and other people are selling jewellery that they're making, or whatever it is. The internet allows us to connect to a marketplace that's far bigger and far easier to find those that are interested in what you're doing. And I think that therefore gives you a different option to the classic, I'm going to go and I'm going to work my way up through the company and become a manager and a middle manager or whatever it is, added to which so many of these companies are failing. Or traditionally, my parents' generation, you'd have 1-2 jobs and you'd be in those jobs for 12 years, 14 years, 20 years. But nowadays, actually, people have 5 or 6 jobs over the course of their career, because you change around a lot more and the jobs aren't so secure. And so I think that there's a lot of wasted awesomeness where people aren't following their heart and they're not following what they love to do, because if they did follow that, they'd probably achieve more in the sense of satisfaction and happiness for themselves, and probably the effort they'll put into it, and therefore the results they'll get within that niche or within that industry. Not necessarily financially more, they might be worse off, but in that sense they'll achieve more. And it's that propels, you know, human development. It propels mankind as a species to achieve amazing works of art, or, you know, an amazing culinary dish or whatever. You know, it doesn't have to be something that everyone could sit out and marvel. It could be something really simple. But the majority of people will go down the kind of, you know, traditional route because they don't think of anything better, or they haven't worked out that there is a path. And I think that's a real shame, because we lose a lot of amazing art that will never get created, amazing inventions that will never be done, amazing, you know, development. And this is, you know, understand quite a resource problem. There are other countries where they don't have the internet or, you know, access to clean water or whatnot. But again, there's huge potential there. People aren't different. They're still the same people. So I think that everybody has this amazing potential within them, and it would just be cool if more people, and I think probably more people are becoming aware that there are other routes where they can harness and look inside themselves and see what they love to do and go after that and just be awesome for the sake of being awesome. And that snowball will mean we'll have more great stuff happening, and also people will be happier, and a happier world is a good place.
Oh, so, exactly. Well, I think you really hit on it, because I know I see so many talented people, and they have these natural gifts, and yet they go to a job that they hate. And I read a lot of personal development books, and one of the biggest reasons people don't go after their dream, for one, it is, like you said, the fear of failure. But it's really more about dealing with that, worrying about how they're going to cope with what people are saying about them when they do fail. And the way that I tell people, if for me, I look at it as I have two choices. I can live my life and not go pursue my dream and just do a job I don't like. But what I focus on is what my life would be like if I didn't go after my dream. I cannot even imagine not pursuing my dream. And so if your dream is not so big that you are desperate to achieve it, that's why people don't really go after it, because part of it is they don't make their dream big enough, and there's no drive or motivation. And for me, the dream's got to really actually scare you, almost to the point of you can't imagine your life without it. Because like you said, we all have so much to give, and we all have awesomeness. And when you said, I liked what you said, there's so many inventions and ideas and create art that we'll never see, because people just don't get that courage, I guess. And that is sad. That's scary. But you are an inspiration. So.
And I was just saying, thank you very much. I was going to say on that point, it is fantastic to have a very clear and bold idea of what you want to achieve, so that you've got it very set in your mind and you can go after it, and that makes it easier because you're focused with a big spotlight on whatever it is. But equally, that in itself can be very daunting for a lot of people, and can put them off, because they look at that and they're like, yes, that's what I want to do. And then they look at their current situation and they're like, yeah, that may as well be on the moon, because how the hell am I going to get there? And so I think it's really important that one looks at first what makes them happy. Really, I think in schools there should be a class on how to make yourself happy. Because that's the most. Because if you come from that place, you're not gonna be putting out negativity. You're not going to be doing all sorts of things which the world can do without. And moreover, you're going to be more productive. You're going to push forward with what it is, because you've got this burning enjoyment. And like somebody said to me, "Oh, you work really hard." Oh no, they say to me, "Oh, you do a lot of hard work." And I said, "I don't do any hard work. My work's easy, but I work really hard, at it, because I love what I do." So it's a different kind of mindset. And I think that, so yes, it's great to have these really big schemes and plans, but when one knows kind of what makes them happy, to really break it down into, well, how do I achieve that happiness now in the most minimal steps with what I've got? And I think that idea of trying to look not externally at what you don't have, that will make you happy, because you see, and again, actually, Pharrell said something similar in this same interview. He was saying, people look at, I want to be a rock star, let's say. And so you look at rock stars and you go, well, I'd like that jet and the girls and the sex and the drugs and rock and roll and all. That sounds right, actually, and all that stuff. But you look at that, but that's just a shallow public-facing element to the hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours that they're dedicating behind the scenes. A guy like Prince, for example, that you don't see, and the hard work, and they're missing the point if they're focusing on that, because that is not the goal. The goal is to be doing something you love so much that you get so successful at it, regardless of whether you're trying or not, that you're able to get these nice things or whatever. But those aren't the things that make you happy. They're not the things that's going to make Prince happy. The thing that makes Prince happy is coming up with a new beat and a little riff or a little groove or whatever. And hell, you can do that in your living room right now if you're a musician, you know, or whatever. So it's to me, it's really, I don't think a lot of people spend enough time analyzing themselves and asking themselves hard questions. Or, you know, get yourself a coach, a life coach, who can ask you these questions in a way that you really think about it. If you can't do it for yourself, do something so that you really understand yourself. Because when someone says to me, I don't know what I want to do, you know, I think to myself, well, you kind of just, you're dodging the question, really. You're not asking yourself the hard question. If you don't know everybody knows deep down what they want to do, but maybe it's difficult to unearth that for whatever reason. So I think that one of the most important things that anybody can do is to ask themselves that question until they really know it and they believe it, or find somebody else or help or a course or something that can help them to unearth that. Because when you've got that central idea, then you're like, okay, cool. So then you can ask yourself the practical questions of how to get there, which, yes, might take you to playing Madison Square Gardens or, you know, Wembley Stadium, whatever. But actually, it might just start with you and your guitar, you know, at a mate's house, or in your local. Well, it will start in your local pub or your local bar, or on the street, or, you know, wherever. But do what you can with what you've got right now, and look for happiness and contentment in that, rather than in the things that you don't have or can buy. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Because if you talk to every successful person who's reached the goal, they all say the same thing. It's not the destination of the victory. It was the journey that took them there. Because then you never really get there. Because once you get there, you're already trying
on the next one.
You're on the next one, to the next level.
And you don't stop. You don't. You know, these guys. They. You know, there's. You know, these guys who are millionaires, billionaires, they don't need to work, they don't need to do what they're doing, but they carry on doing it because it's not about the money. The money's lovely, but it's about doing what you love doing. And if you can find that in life, then, and be able to do it, and if you're able to then make a living from it, and a living doesn't have to be, you know, I mean, we're in a one-bed apartment. I could do with a bit more space. I'd like to be able to put a drum kit in here, but really, yeah, there's no room. It's amazing what I do have in here. But, you know, of course I like more space, and it would be great to have a bit more money so we can have more space. But the key is I can do what I love doing right here, right now. You don't need a huge amount of stuff, toys, whatever. Yes, they can help, and if you can build them. But if you can do what you love doing enough to pay your rent, pay for your food, pay your bills, that's where you need, you know, that's success to my mind. That is real success. Right. Anything above that is brilliant. But if somebody says, "Oh, is successful, not successful?" to me, are you happy?
Right.
That's success. You know, then you're on the right path.
Exactly, and that's a good, because that was one of my questions. So I'll go right into that, because you were talking about how you can literally do it right in your home, and you've actually done 2 EPs. You had the two different volumes, volume 1 and 2 of sketches, and then you had They Come and Go Like Rain. I think that's your most current, right? Is that?
Yeah. I'm working on my next EP now, because for those who don't know, the sketches EPs are like just a guitar and vocals. They're basically just like a blueprint of a song that I just want to commit down, so that I've got a recording of it, so that I don't forget it, and also that I can refer back to later. And if I have the time or the ability or whatnot, then they might be songs that I might expand on and do a bigger arrangement. The EPs that have got different names than just sketches, volume 1 or 2, They Come and Go Like Rain, and the EP that I'm working on now, Grip the Sky, they are kind of full band stuff, so bass, drums, a few guitars, vocals, you know, more kind of complete songs with a bit more production on them. But all of them I record here at home myself, and, you know, with Mina running about, telling me in no uncertain terms I should be sitting on the floor and playing stickers with her. You know, these, yes, so I record these at home.
That's great. So anybody who's wanting to get started, they don't have to have the fancy equipment, you know, the studio, I guess, fancy studio.
Not in the slightest. I mean, the first and most important thing you need, probably just a pen and paper. If you can find a pen and paper, then you can be a songwriter, if that's what you want to do. Or if you want to be a fiction writer, or, you know, whatever, pen and paper is the first thing. If you want people to be able to see it and you want to be a blogger, okay, cool, you're going to need a computer and an internet connection. I would say that that's then the second most important thing. But even then, you know, certainly in the UK, I don't know about the US, but you can go into a library and use their computer for free and connect to the internet. There's internet cafes everywhere which aren't too expensive. So if you really, really want to, you can go and you know, you can go and find the internet and the computer there if you can't find it. I think there's a story about J.K. Rowling. I'm not sure how true this is, but she's the one who wrote Harry Potter, and as a you know, over a very short period of time became, I think, the richest author in the world, or authoress in the world, or, you know, she's worth a lot of money. And the story goes, how true it is, I don't know, but the story goes that she wrote the first Harry Potter on basically napkins and paper that she got in a cafe that she kept going to because she was so poor that she couldn't afford, like, something like she couldn't afford heating in her flat or something. So she went to a cafe because it was warmer, and wrote it all on, you know, maybe it's a, you know, a little PR myth, or maybe not. But the simple idea is, if you want something, use the tools that you've got at your disposal, and then later you can improve on that. Brilliant. So maybe once, you know, if you're going to get back to music, if you're probably going to use an instrument to write to, you know, you might just do it a cappella, but maybe UK, so you got a guitar, so then you might want to be able to record that down. So again, if you don't have a computer, you could use, you know, your smartphone. Every idea that I have starts life on here, and before I had this phone, on the phone before that, and before, and often they're like, in fact, literally last night I went to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was so tired last night, and I got into bed and I started falling asleep, and this happens to be quite a lot. And then this stupid idea came into my head, and I knew I'd have to get up, go into the kitchen, boot my phone back up, croakily go, and then go back to it. Haven't listened to it today. It might be total crap, but, you know, that's where the idea starts, so I don't forget it. So one thing I'd definitely say is have a way to notate the idea when it comes to you. That's really important. If you're a writer, pen and paper. If you're a musician, have a tape recorder, have a smartphone, have, you know, anything, so that you can record it somewhere and clear your mind so you don't have to remember it, because that first initial time you get it, you'll probably get something cooler than if you try and remember it down the line without having a recording to kind of guide you. And then, in addition to that, have a way to back that up. So make sure that you save that somewhere else, in the cloud, whatever, because you do not want to lose a whole load of work and ideas and, you know, inspiration, and that's a real pain. But yeah, so then work with what you've got, and in terms of the equipment that I use or that I've got, you know, I started, it's not to hand actually, it's kind of up there. I started with this little portable, my wife bought me for our engagement present. So my fiance at the time, she bought me a little portable recorder. This was before smartphones. Nowadays you could do it all on a smartphone, but a little portable recorder, and I used that for a while, and then I got a laptop, and it was really underpowered, but I used that for a bit. And then when I decided that I really wanted to be more professional about what I was doing, then I got a more high-powered computer. And I do like to buy quality gear, but the gear that you need to record is so minimal. Really, the computer, something to plug your instrument into if it's your guitar. I'm an acoustic player, so like the instruments I play, you have to play, they're not electronic instruments. So I got a guitar, I got a lead, the lead goes into a box that translates that analog signal, that translates what you're playing into the digital world so the computer can understand it, and the computer, so it's really like guitar, lead, box, feed from the box into computer, and computer. So at its basic 5 things. And nowadays, the tools that are available to you, this kind of goes back to what I said right at the beginning, the tools that are available to people at a price point that is just ridiculous. You could spend 300 quid, so I guess $500 or something, on a computer, and probably the box to plug into as well nowadays, that would be more powerful than what you couldn't afford even if you were nearly rich 10 years ago. You know, it just keeps coming. As I say, you could do it on your iPod,
Yeah,
your iPhone, yeah, or your iPad. So the tools are becoming cheaper and cheaper, and the quality of them is getting higher and higher, and the ability to know how to use a tool, because that is the real key. You know, I remember when I really loved Pink Floyd, and when they made Dark Side of the Moon, which is one of the top 3 best-selling albums of all time, people were saying to them, well, yeah, but it's all just the equipment that you're using makes the sound. And they're like, yes, it is, but I'll tell you what, I'll challenge anybody to take the equipment that we've got, I'll put you in the studio with it, go right ahead. Let's see if you can come up with anything. Of course, you can't. You know, give me an axe. It's the most simple piece of equipment. It's a very simple tool. I couldn't cut, you know, I could hardly cut the air with it. But give it to a guy, a lumberjack, and he'll be talking to you while, you know, doing all sorts of crazy sculpture with it. The tool is important. If you've got a quality one, then it makes your life easier, but it's just the tool. The ability to use that tool is what marks your work out as improving or better or amazing or whatever. And therefore it comes right back to get the tools, get simple tools. The simpler the better, because then you don't have too much you need to worry about. And then get on Google and work out how to use the tool and put the hours in using it. And then bit by bit, you don't notice the progress, but when you look back 6 months ago at the work you're doing then, or a year ago, that's when you kind of go, oh wow, I've actually improved. And then you've raised your benchmark, and then you're benchmarking yourself against other stuff, and you realize, oh, I'm still way behind this, and that gives you a new thing to aim for. And in a bit you'll find that, oh wait, I'm kind of at that level, and then you start aiming up there, and that's just progress.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, I want you to tell the viewers a little bit about the, because you're a producer too, and the video that you directed, you actually directed it, you shot it, you edited it, the video Breathe for
Oh yeah, for James King.
For James King, yeah. What and there was a, tell us what this is about, because I saw a little bit about it in your blog article.
Okay, cool. So James is an artist here in the UK who I met at open mic nights that I go to, and also now I host every week. I host an open mic night, and James is an artist that I met there, but kind of overarching all of that is a gentleman called Luke Floriani, who's the guy specific to that song. He was the guy that wrote that song originally, but he was the guy who's been a really amazing guy for me, because I was talking earlier about having an office job, and I quit the office job basically to focus full-time on music at the beginning of last year. And I had a wife, a 1-year-old daughter, and prior to that, in my old job, I was earning pretty good money, but I still owed a bunch of money on debt. Like, I didn't have loads of savings or anything like that. But I took this complete plunge and gamble, because I realized that if I didn't really pursue my dream properly, I'll always be saying, what if, what if I did? So I quit my job, and January last year I started, and of course then the penny dropped. Hang on a sec, I don't know anybody, I don't have any CV, so to speak, I'm unknown. I'm starting at the bottom. I've got nothing going on, so I better quick smart sort myself out, because I've got a family to provide for. And again, I'm a big believer that once you really commit to something or focus on something, the universe starts providing. And I don't mean that in a kind of mystic way. What I interpret that as, there are opportunities that are passing each and every one of us by in the air almost. Every day you go out, and there'll be opportunities everywhere for improving what you're doing in some way, or improving your life in some way. But for the most part, unless you're open and receptive to seeing them through necessity or through desire, they just pass you by. You don't even notice them. But then once you kind of open your mind to them, then you start seeing these opportunities, and they seem like coincidences, because you're like, I was just looking for that. Oh wow, that's amazing. But actually that's probably been there all the time. You just didn't notice it. Right. And so they say necessity is the mother of all invention. I do like that idea. Yeah. And it's true. So I had never played an open mic night before. I'd never played just myself with an acoustic guitar. And I was really scared of it. I'd played in bands enough times and to big crowds, but always being able to hide behind an electric guitar, loads of noise, bass drums. If I forgot the lyrics, which happens a lot, I just lean away from the microphone, and no one's going to know it. Fine, because they can't hear anyway, because the guitar, I'd play a note or whatever. When you're with an acoustic guitar and it's just you, everyone hears everything that you're doing, and if you get it wrong, everyone knows you're getting it wrong. So I had this big fear for all these years. I was like, right, well, I've got to get over this fear. So I went to this open mic night, and the guy running it is a gentleman called Luke Floriani. And through him, I got a lot of my breaks last year in terms of recording artists or doing videos for artists or even stuff. One of the things that was amazing was when I realized that, and this is something actually for anybody watching everywhere, we all have a unique life that has led us to where we are right now, and that unique life has given us a unique skill set, and we may not realize quite how valuable some of those skills are to other people. So for example, my brother is a very, just to try to pick a kind of a simple example, my brother is a very, very capable guy, a very ambitious and high achieving guy. And he eats to survive, not because of any other reason. If he could, he'd probably just take one pill in the morning that would sort him out for the whole day, so he doesn't have to worry about food. To him, that's not. My wife is Italian, and food is extremely important. You know, if there was a pill that do that, she would probably burn all those pills if she could find them, because it's about cooking. It's about, you know, so that you couldn't get two more polar people. But so my wife probably wouldn't say that she wouldn't think of her skill as in cooking as being anything that you could sell. And my brother is probably more business minded, so he thinks, well, I would happily pay someone else to just deal with the cooking for me. So if by odds and chances my wife happened to have lived next door to my brother, they might have struck up a deal where he said, well, look, I'll tell you what, I'll just pay you to cook an extra portion of whatever you're cooking and put it through my door every day, you know. And so I use that as a kind of trying to make, it's a funny idea, but it's trying to make a simple idea that the simple things that you might do every day you don't value, but actually someone else values that and would actually pay for that, not necessarily because they can't do it, because they don't want to do it, or maybe they can't do it. And so last year, Luke was amazing because he kind of brought out these things that I did for myself, that I was teaching myself to do, building a website or you know, or making a video or whatever. And he was able to connect me with other people who were in search of those skills or needed them, so I could work on those projects. And all of a sudden I found that, hang on a sec, I'm getting paid to do something which I'm not professional. You know, sooner or later they're going to work out and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. You know, and the first video I did, a promo video, I made I'll tell you this quick anecdote, it's kind of amusing. It was the very first video I did with Luke. He said to me, he calls me up, says, "You've got a camera, haven't you?" Yeah. He goes, "Cool. You can take film on it, right? You can do videos." I'm like, well, yeah, it's a DSLR, like a stills camera, but I bought it because it's the bottom of their professional range. So yeah, you can do sort of high def film. Brilliant. What are you doing on Thursday? I'm free. Okay, cool. Meet me at Wembley Stadium. So, what? All right, cool. He's Australian, so he got it wrong. It was actually meant to be Wembley Arena, not Wembley Stadium. So after an hour of prattling around Wembley Stadium, we realised our error. So we went to Wembley Arena, which is like Madison Square Gardens. It's that kind of size. It's a big, big venue. And there was the global street dance competition, and the finals were going to be held at Wembley Arena. And he had arranged to do the promo video for them. So I turn up with my little, you know, DSLR camera, not knowing what the hell I'm doing. I've never done anything like this before. And he's just like, I'm like, "What are we doing?" He goes, "Romeo, just film everything." I'm like, all right. So I'm just filming. I don't know how to film. I'm just doing this, that, the other. I don't know. And then these dance crews arrive, and some of them have, you know, been on Britain's Got Talent, and I think one of them won it. And, you know, so they had a bit of profile. And this one woman, I think she's a manager, one of them looked at me, she goes, "Oh, you taking photos?" I'm like, no, I'm doing video. And she was like, "That." You know, there's nothing that makes a man feel like inadequate than having his, you know, it's like, yeah, with this. Wait. You know. So I'm filming inside this venue, and there's this big rehearsal going on. And it's like I say, it's this big arena venue, and so they've got all the lights going on, all this stuff. And I'm filming, and I'm thinking, there's no dancing going on. In fact, they're not even talking about dancing. They're talking about aid in Africa. And I'm leaning over to Luke, and I'm like, "But is this what we're here for?" And he goes, "I don't think it is." So I spent 20 minutes filming something which had nothing to do with that, so I looked even more professional. So we're prattling around, and so right at the end, there was the big money shot thing, which is all the different dance crews were going to do a little routine outside the front of the Wembley Arena. So I've got my camera and I'm like ready. I'm like, all right, action, blah, blah, whatever. And they're all doing their thing, you know. And it was a really bright day, a really surprisingly bright day, because it's like March or something. And it was really, really bright, and I couldn't see anything on the viewfinder. But I was like, that's cool. I know I'm shooting in the right direction. It should be fine. couldn't see it. It was so bright on the viewfinder. Anyway, so I get the stuff home, and the footage, I'm really pleased. The footage looks really good when I'm looking at it on the computer. And I'm like, oh, pat on the back, yeah, I got some cool shots. And then this big money shot, the big bad boy shot that's going to tie the whole thing. I realised that it was so overexposed. You couldn't. The black guys in the dance crews didn't just look white. You still couldn't see them. They were so white. And the white guys, the white guys were just invisible. And I was like, oh my God, like the big shot, and you can't see, and they're busting their dance moves and everything, and you just can't see anything. And I don't panic very often, but on this occasion I just like panicked. I'm like, man, I've let you down. I'm really sorry. He said, don't worry. He said, I'll come round. It'll be fine. I was thinking, mate, it's not going to be fine when you see this. So he sees the footage and he's like, yeah, that's pretty bad. He goes, I'll just he goes, do some colours on it or something. I don't even know. So we randomly, because I didn't know how to edit in this level at all, I could cut a scene and put another one there, and that was about my ability. Google. And so I Googled how to do the colour thing. So then I'm dragging dials around, and it starts looking like this weird kind of cartoon, just all these random colours coming up and all sorts of strangeness. Anyway, very long story now short. So in the end, we got the best we could do, gave it to the client, and I heard that they signed it off, and that was fine. And about 6 months later, I was at an event, and the client was at this event, and he comes up to me, he said, oh, Romeo, the video you did for us, he goes, I used to edit as well and did some stuff in TV, and he goes, it was brilliant, but that bit with all the colours, oh, that was such a genius idea, and it was so good. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, man, well, yeah. Like, so the biggest mistake that I could have possibly made to him was the best thing about the whole video. It was intentional, and so that was a good learning curve. I was like, I will always make sure I'm not overexposed before I take another shot. But this is my thing. You learn from making mistakes. That one turned out well, other ones won't or didn't. I don't know. But so through this guy Luke, I started doing all this other work and this paid work, and so this artist Luke started managing James, and so it came back he was going to do a video, and they asked me, they had the concept already, and so they asked me if I would do the video, and I was like, yeah. Again, I'd never done a music video before. I'd done a live video of another artist called Dan Olsen, who's, both of them, James and Dan, are very, very good artists. And I don't know if I can say this. I think you'll probably hear more about them because I think they're about to be signed to Universal Records. But I don't know if that's public yet. But I definitely think you should go and check out James King. I think it's jameskingmusic.net and danolsenmusic.com. And while you're there, I designed both those websites, which doesn't matter. But so I did some work with Dan, just shooting a live video for him, and he's an amazing singer-songwriter, so it came out very, very well. But I hadn't done a music video, so that was a really cool learning curve for me. And yeah, so it's as I say, like, I'd love to make a feature film, but if somebody said to me, all right, here's 10 million quid, make a feature film, I'd be stuck in the mud. I wouldn't have a clue what to do. But bit by bit, by doing these little videos, which, I got the camera, and the first thing I learned to do was put the camera on a tripod and shoot and focus. And, it took me a while to work out how to focus, and I'd talk to the camera and then look around because it's just me and myself, so I look around the camera, oh, that's terrible, and I go back and try it again. And so you just start with the small steps with what you can do there and then, and bit by bit, you might not realize it, but you're building the skill set and you're building the experience, so that when a project does come along, which might have been what you'd always wanted to do, you realize that actually I'm ready to do this. I mean, you're never ready to do it, but hopefully there's always been a fear, because it means you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and you're learning to do something new, which is the exciting thing about it. But you realize that, okay, cool, actually no, I have graded myself up to where someone's asked me to do this. And that, again, that opportunity is because you put yourself in the position to receive or to notice or to see that opportunity. Whereas if you don't put yourself in that position and you don't start making the steps towards it, you'll never see that opportunity and you'll never be able to take advantage of it. And so that was really cool to do that with James. And a couple of people have said to me, oh, I've seen your music video you did for James. Would you be interested in working together? And so each one of these is like a little building block. I recorded Dan's album here at home, and it's really cool because he's just done a song with, I don't know if she's English, I think, but there's a singer called Sonique who's had, I think she sold about 250 million records or something over the years, and she's doing a song with Dan now, and his profile is really going up and up, and James is going up and up, and it's cool to think that his debut album, you know, we recorded it right here, and it was all because I learned how to plug in my guitar and put in all those hours of making really bad recordings to the point where I can make an okay one, and then, you know, you do the okay one for the next person, and so yeah, so that's how that came about, and that's why I urge everybody, if you've got a passion for something, just start doing it, because you never know when or how quickly you can get to a point that you just never would believe you'd have been at only a few months before, and then all of a sudden you think, wow, that's impressive, but actually no, it's because you've put in the work, because you've done what most people aren't doing, which is doing it.
Well, that's amazing. Well, I think you're going about everything in the right way. Because you really do just have to put yourself out there and be willing to make the mistakes, and sometimes the mistakes turn out to be the best thing that you could have done. So, and I've just got a couple more questions. We're going to have to wrap it up, but I wanted to, there was something I wanted to ask you about, because I was talking to a local musician here on an interview, and he was talking about going into character when he's on stage. Do you, when you're doing something live, or even when you're recording, do you feel like you're going into a certain different character? Is that something that you do, or?
For me, not really, but certainly, if I'm recording, let's say I'm recording at home, I'm definitely trying to think about the song and what the lyrics mean, and that, you know, even if there's nobody about, I'm still performing it, I'm still trying to make it believable, because I'm still trying to access that so it is truthful for me in that moment. And the same thing when I'm performing live. But although I don't go into a character, certainly what does happen, and what I love, is when you have an audience that's more interactive with you, then that brings out a more natural character or performance or whatever. You're able to do more with the performance or with the show or with the song, because there's that energy between you. There's something happening. Whereas, and I've played plenty of gigs where it's just you and no one gives a monkey's what you're doing, and you know, you could do anything and no one's even going to notice, and it's much more difficult and challenging to kind of put a real honest performance together. But for me, there are some performers, like singers particularly, who are note perfect, but they don't seem to have any soul to what they're doing. And then there are other musicians and performers who are all over the shop in a technical sense, but are just so engaging that, you know, that you're just like, bang, I'm up there. Mick Jagger still can't really sing, but, you know, you want to watch Mick Jagger perform, because you know that dude you're going to watch him. And for me, I don't think I've got a particularly good voice. I often sing quite flat, and my guitar playing is quite sloppy. But what I really want to do is, I'd much rather myself, and generally when I see performers, have someone put passion into what they're doing, and you can see it, they mean it, and it's honest, even if it's a bit ropey. I'd much rather see that than somebody who's just kind of bang on but got nothing going on. And so for me, it's easier for me to access that and do that and deliver that, because it is stripping away, you know, a bit of a shield in your layers, and just kind of really, when you're able to go for something in a very honest way, you do expose yourself. You are more vulnerable in a sense, but to me, that's when you're really letting the passion kind of out. And to me, that is the best thing about performing. And if you've got an audience who are receptive to that and feeding back to that, then that's when I think, you know, as a performer, you can have the most fun and give the most authentic kind of performance. So in that sense, that's where I kind of try and get to.
Yeah, well, I like it. I mean, I think having the personality and the passion in there is, I don't know, it all goes together. Like you said, it's much better to have all that than somebody up there that might be singing great or playing great, but they're just rigid and there's no passion. And
no soul to what they're doing.
Yeah, no soul. So that's a good way to put it. So, well, do you have any places that you want to tell before we wrap it up that you're going to be performing live, or do you have plans to do a tour, or is that like in the future? You know?
Most certainly, I would love to. I'm looking forward to hopefully being able to play out live a lot more in the future, and certainly, possibly not this year, but next year, to be able to do a few little tours. I feel really humbled, and it's just awesome that I'm getting messages from people in really diverse places, you know, saying when you come into Florida, or when you come into Manila and the Philippines, or you're going to come to Kenya, and again, the internet, beautiful thing. I love the fact that there is that that global and that accessible thing. So I love traveling. My wife loves traveling. Our daughter loves traveling as well. And so being able to go and play in different places would just be really, that would be a dream come true. For the moment, in the foreseeable future, I'm not going to be doing too much live stuff in terms of venues, but I probably will start doing some sort of online concerts, because sort of getting a lot of people asking the same question, and actually, if I can work out how to do something online and give it a bit of energy and atmosphere, then then that might be at least a good starting point. But a little sort of side note, which is I haven't told anyone about actually. So I've met up with a couple of guys once, twice, to possibly form a band with as a sort of side project, which I'm really excited about, because it's great when you're there on your own with an acoustic guitar and singing your own songs. But I'm a rocker. I'm an electric player. I like a band. I like having guys around me and that interaction. And these two guys are absolutely fantastic musicians, a bassist and drummer. And I really have to pull my game up to play with those guys, which is what I like. I like to feel like I'm the weak link, because then I'm going to push myself, and then hopefully in doing that, it pushes them, and then they push back, and you improve. The challenge we're having is just finding the time to meet up, because we're all really quite busy. But if we're able to get over that initial kind of hump and get some stuff done and get playing, then we'll certainly be playing out live as soon as we've done that in London, and that'll be a lot of fun. But if anybody is in London, you can see me generally each week at an open mic that I host. Sometimes I play if there's time. Other times I'm there to help other people play. So I did it on Wednesday. It's every Wednesday, and on the Wednesday just got me had a lot of performance, so I didn't play. In fact, actually, we went to a pub afterwards until 3 in the morning, and I was made to play in the pub. So that's why I'm a bit croaky now, because I didn't have any amplification, and I was doing like Guns N' Roses and all sorts of weird songs. In fact, it was bizarre, because we went from Guns N' Roses at one point to somebody just gave me some chords and were like, play this. So I started playing these chords, and then realised that it was YMCA, and then Gloria Gaynor, first I was afraid, I was petrified, and it was just I was with a couple of crazy French guys. One had a clarinet, one had a banjo, and it was just a very random, bizarre night, but it was a lot of fun. So occasionally you might see me play like that, but yeah.
Well, good. Well, I think you should, because I think that I would think being on stage is fun for you, and I'm glad that you're getting a band together, because I think you should be. I mean, you're a great-looking guy, and your personality is great, and your presence and your passion is there. So, I think people would love to see you live. So, what I have to ask you though before we start wrapping, this is still one of my favorite pictures. This one and of course this one, because I love your smile here. Let's see if you can see this. I don't know if I've got it. But I was talking to some people here in my area. We were all trying to figure out where this was taken, this picture.
So that those pictures were taken on the island that my wife's from in Italy. It's an island called Ischia. My wife took those pictures there. I mean, just we go around, it's beautiful weather, it's in the south of Italy, and we go around with the car, and I take the guitar, and I think at that time Mina was sleeping in the car, and we just had pizza, I think, and then I was just playing with the guitar, and she took a few photos, and I must confess I quite like that one as well. And that's cool, because it was just very natural, and the other one, So yeah, so that's I recommend it to anybody who wants to go anywhere beautiful. Go to the island of Ischia in Italy, just off the coast of Naples, off the Amalfi Coast.
Well, it looks beautiful. It does.
It is. I am a bit biased, but I must say it really is. In fact, if you watch, and very, very quickly, talking about work with what you've got, I'd done some videos for my first few songs. I had a challenge to see if I could record a song in a day. So I wrote a song and recorded it in a day, and then I wanted to challenge myself to see if I could do a video for it. But I didn't really. I was like, I don't know how to shoot video. Where do I shoot it? What do I do? And I thought, well, that's just procrastinating, because work with what you've got. So I thought, actually, that song reminds me of a film. So I found a film, and I cut the footage from the film and I put it to the song. And I did this for a few songs. So I used some James Bond footage for one song, which I thought was a James Bond-esque song. And so I did a few of those, and I'm really pleased with how they turned out. And I was really pleased with the learning curve from them. But then I was like, okay, now I've got to challenge myself to do a video of original footage. And again, I was like, oh, well, what do? I don't know if I've got time. And then I thought, well, hang on a sec, work with what you've got, So I took my phone, this one here, and knowing that I was travelling from the UK, from London to Ischia, because we were going back for Christmas to my in-laws, I just filmed the journey. Literally, just as we're going along, I'm pulling the massive suitcase and my daughter's blooming travel cot, so heavy, and I'm putting the two of them with one hand, and I'm filming like this, and everybody's looking at me like I'm some sort of weird nutter. I'm just filming lifts, I'm filming pavement, I'm filming the bus. I just filmed everything, and then when I came back, I just spliced it up, and that became the video for my song Shoes. So the reason I mention it is twofold. One, because it's an example of, it's a shaky ass camera like this on a phone, but I'm pleased with how the videos turned out, and it's just something. It's not, is it the best video I'll ever do? No. But is it a good place to start? Absolutely. So that's the one reason to say to people, work with what you've got and just do it. And the second reason I say that is because if you want to look at a bit more about Ischia, then you can see more of images and footage of Ischia in that video.
Okay.
So you can enjoy more of the sunshine and nice stuff that we have there that we don't have in London. It's currently grey.
Well, I'm just glad because I won the bet, because I said I thought that looked like might be Italy, but I didn't.
Yes, you absolutely won that.
All right. Well, I hate to end this today, Romeo, because it's been really a lot of fun talking to you, and
likewise.
You are such an inspiration. And I just wanted to thank you again for being here today on Tamarah's Closet, because I think you are someone people should follow on Facebook, no matter what type of dream they're going after, because you are such a good connector of people. I think it's probably just the best way to put that. And I want to make sure everyone knows how to find you, like on.
You're so awesome.
Romeo.com, but then you can get some of his free at free.romeo.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and then follow tamarahscloset.com for my upcoming blog article, and I'll get with Romeo and get all the links that you want me to put in there, Romeo, and so that we have everything that people need to find you on Facebook and Twitter and all that. So so don't hang up yet. Don't hang up on me.
Okay.
So I'll thank the viewers too for being here today, whether you're seeing it live or watching the replay. Make sure you connect with Romeo, and also connect with me at tamarahscloset.com and on Facebook. So and stay tuned, because I will have a blog article on Romeo in my Celebrity Closet section coming up, and also on the end of May, I'm going to have another talented artist, which he also has a great smile. And he's an artist he does a lot of sculptures and as well as paintings. And his name is Janko De Beer from Cape Town, South Africa. So he'll be here the end of the month. And thanks for supporting Tamarah's Closet. And and supporting all my talented guests. Is there anything else you wanted to say, Romeo?
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to say a massive thank you to you for taking the time and the energy and the effort to put this together in general, and also for having me on to bore you senseless for an hour or so. You know, which I still think is amazing, and it's absolutely fantastic. But I also want to thank you for all the effort that you put. I don't know if anybody has seen beforehand, but I don't think I've seen pretty much anybody put so much effort into something that they do with such regularity. And for me, that's been really inspirational, because it's stuff like that that makes me think, you know, at 1 a.m. when I'm feeling tired and I think, oh, maybe I'll go to bed. I think, actually, no, because, you know, there are people who are putting the effort in, and I want to be like those people and not, you know, like the people who are still asleep right now. Though as much as I'd like to sleep at that time. So I wanted to thank you very much for your inspiration to me and putting all this together. And lastly, and definitely not leastly, to anybody who has sat through all of this up to this point, you deserve a medal. And if you're ever in town, I owe you a beer. And yes, please do follow Tamarah. And thank you so much for your time and your interest and your support. It's amazing, it really is.
Well, thank you, Romeo. Don't hang up. I'm going to take us off air, and then so just hang on 1 second.